Welcome to the S.J. Childs Show, where a little bit of knowledge can turn fear into understanding. Enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the show. This week, our special shout outs are going to some people who are really making the effort to help us push the 1 in 36 Mix Virtual Autism Summit to be as big as we can make it. So I want to give some special shout outs to Tamika Morales. She's on LinkedIn and she's the president of the Autism Hero Project. Please go check them out. Please support them. Another person I really had a great discussion with today is Mia from Superpower Radio. She has a channel over on iHeartRadio. Go check them out. And last but certainly not least, Erica Bailey. Erica really showed up for me this week. She is the co-founder of CWG Digital Marketing. She is an event sponsor for the 1 in 36 Mix. She really helped me to figure out what best ways to market and promote the event. And I just really want a huge thank you out to her and her amazing team of helpers. Thank you all for listening. And I want you to know that all of you listeners, each and every one of you, make a difference for me and for the lives of so many every day. Thank you. Enjoy the show.
Hi, and thank you so much for joining the S.J. Childs Show today. I'm so excited to have this conversation. It's already has me smiling ear to ear. I'm already uplifted from just being moments on screen with you and on in this discussion. So it's going to be a wonderful discussion. Today I have Roxanna Lewis, and I'm just going to turn it over to her to give her a little introduction and tell us a little bit why you're here today.
Oh, wow. Well, good morning, Sarah. Thank you so much. I too am already bubbling. I'm like, what do I get to talk about? Well, I'm so excited for you in this program, and I'm really honored to be a part of it. I want to say thank you very much for having me here with you, and just go into it. So, what would you like to know?
Let's start at the beginning, and you could go back as far as you'd like. You were born. So, however you feel to continue forward.
All right. Well, okay. So I started out, I think one of the reasons we may get into a discussion a little further down the road is about a film that I've directed and that I've made. And I would like to, as a filmmaker, I'd like to backtrack because I have a bit of a interesting trajectory in terms of how I became a filmmaker. And I've really tried to figure it out because honestly, it is wacky to be
those are the best stories. Yes.
And a director or whatever that is, and like why and how. And I've spent a lot of time thinking about this actually lately, and why the projects I pick or the projects that pick me might be really what it is. And I started out as a dancer, and I come from a home of, it was a multi-generational home of immigrants who were very socially active in terms of civil rights movement and social rights, social justice movement. And really, really plugged in on both a local level, a national level, and an international level. And so my mom also threw me into dance classes because I had a lot of energy. And also, as a very young child, she was helping me get out of a home. My mom and dad were having a lot of problems, and it was not really a wonderfully safe place to be. And so she said, dance is a great space for that. And she put me into dance classes that were actually Polynesian stick dancing and flamenco and Tahitian and West African dance. And so my very first experience with movement and rhythm and sound and vibration was not about perfection, was not about form, but it was actually really very much about community. And it was about what are we all doing in this space? How do we communicate with each other? I mean, the truth is none of us knew what we were doing. It was new for everyone in the room. And we were all pretty timid, quiet people who, for me, I didn't even want to talk. I was somebody who did not speak a lot. And for me, movement became vocabulary, it became words, and it put me in touch with my feelings, which was, I think, for many of us still are very uncomfortable feeling our feelings. And so as a little kid, I got really accustomed to being able to put my feelings into movement. And then what did that movement communicate with other people in the room and in the space? And yes, I did fall in love with dance. I ultimately did want to become a ballerina. My mom enrolled me into a school that was a pipeline ultimately into American Ballet Theater. And they, at the ripe age of 11, said, you don't have the body to become a ballerina,
Oh boy.
So that set me down. And it was wacky. It was just really skewed visions of what that's supposed to be. And thankfully, we're dealing with that in society a lot today, I think, a lot better.
And that's true.
Yeah. And so I went into dance. I went to Duke Ellington School for the Arts in DC. And ultimately, I went to a university up in New York, which gave me the tools to become, through an injury, I became a choreographer. And that choreography really opened my world. It became, I was very fortunate. I kind of got a grant right out of the gate coming out of college. And I went, oh, I guess there's something here. So I just really said yes to anything that came my way. And I ended up working in repertory and kind of boy band commercial world of music and musicians. And eventually I landed with a dance company in New York City, which is really wonderful, the Infinity Dance Theater. And it was a company for dancers with and without disabilities. And the woman who founded it was paralyzed and used a wheelchair. And at that time, there were only 2 dance companies in the world that I'm aware of that really had that focus. One was on the West Coast, and we were the company on the East Coast. And so it was really a life-changing opportunity for me because she literally said, long story short, she met me as a choreographer. I was also training as an actress. She forced me to go back into performing, and she was adjudicating a showcase and said, no, I want you to dance. And I was like, I'm retired at 27, and she was wonderful. After that performance happened, she said, I'd like to commission you for work. And I was like, wow. And I'll be very candid. I was stunned. I mean, I was really ignorant. I had no training. I had, the only thought I could think at that very limited brain space, little pea brain, was, how do I, quote unquote, make someone in a wheelchair dance? What is that supposed to look like? And I was very concerned about it being trite. And I didn't want it to be appreciated just because there was somebody in a wheelchair. She didn't ask me to do that. She said to me, she looked me in my eyes and said, I want you to create work with me that you want to dance with me and that I've never, ever done before. And that took me back to my childhood. I was like, okay, well, now we're going back to my African dance, West African dance roots, and very international kind of mixture into contemporary work. She'd never performed to percussion before. By the way, I have to say, she was a trained ballerina. And she has an extraordinary story. So I met her in a professional dance class, and she just blew me away because I didn't want to be there. And there she was, working as hard as she did. And the reason she inspired me was not because she was in a wheelchair, but because her work ethic was extraordinary. And she was a beautiful dancer. So we were very fortunate. We traveled around the United States. We performed at Lincoln Center Outdoors and the Kennedy Center, and some really amazing opportunities around Europe as well, and specifically Italy. And that really opened my eyes to several years working with people in DC. I'm from DC. I'd worked with, through Duke Ellington, we had collaborations with Gallaudet College, and I'd had opportunities to work with people who were deaf. So this opportunity then it was like really cool people who had different abilities, different disability, people with different disabilities, people who are paralyzed, people who are amputees, people who just, it was this remarkable collection of incredibly talented individuals. And our job was to make the work together, period. And that felt very natural to me. And we were very fortunate. We got a lot of, at that time, there was no social media, so it was really tough, but we did well. And the company gained $1 million in a benefactor from the piece that I created. And it just, it validated our efforts. It validated our efforts together. And so eventually I got, oh, this is too long of a story.
No, it's fantastic. I love it. I'm like, wow, I'm on this journey. I'm going around the world.
Cut me off every time.
I love
it's
it.
like
I love
a
it.
whirlwind.
Please.
My gosh.
Take forever.
So, I was very fortunate. I needed work. I met another woman who produced music videos at the time, and she opened the door as a choreographer for me. And we got along really well, and I had a blast. And so I was like, do you have any more, can I choreograph another? Can I, like, what gigs do you have coming up? She's like, no, but I need a production assistant. What's a production assistant? Okay, basically you do what I tell you to do. Okay. And, then it was, she needed someone in wardrobe. She needed someone in costumes and makeup and hair and art director. And so, and then eventually it became a line assisting her and she was a line producer. So she really gave me the opportunity to learn how behind the scenes
all
was
the
working.
tools. Yeah.
It was really cool. And of course, at the time, I'm like, can I choreograph? Can I choreograph? And she's like, yeah. So it was, I wasn't plugged in. I mean, I loved it because I didn't have to warm up or get dressed up, but I really enjoyed learning about the back end of it.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, my mom had when I went to college, she went to AFI, which is American Film Institute in Los Angeles, as a screenwriter. And I'm pretty sure she's the only woman who was in our class, which was pretty big deal.
Amazing.
She didn't drive a car. She had to learn how to drive a car in LA. And she's a very introverted, gentle human being. So it was a big deal to like get out, in Hollywood world. And I remember her saying to me, Roxanna, I really think you should try out for this women's directing program. And I was like, I'm a barefoot dancer in New York. I don't, what director even do? And so, that's kind of haunted me. What insight she had, I think. And so I eventually was working back and forth between New York and LA in production. And meanwhile, I was acting, and meanwhile, I was choreographing. So I was just kind of being creative in any corner I could find. And when I landed back in New York, I decided to take some time, and I ultimately started a family. I have a son and a daughter, and both of who are under 18, and one's still in middle school. And when she was born, she was diagnosed with epilepsy. And I just said, okay, I'm going to take, that's my priority. No questions asked. And some years went by. I still kept directing and choreographing on a much smaller scale, but really I kind of thought my career was over because I couldn't see how to connect the dots. And I moved to Florida, and Florida's been really very generous. I received a couple of very valuable grants that allowed me to transition from live director and choreographer into producing for film and television and directing for film and television. So it's really been a beautiful journey, unexpected. And so that's kind of what brings me up to the present day, I'd say. Thank you for your attention. My gosh.
It's amazing. I loved it. I absolutely, my favorite part about this journey is learning other people, where they started, what passions that drove them to get to where they're at. There's so much we can take away from those types of ideas and lessons. And just like you said, maybe not being ignorant to the things around you that you take for granted. And when you get to a space and you meet people who literally never take anything for granted. They don't even have the cognizant ability to do so. You really reflect and say, like, if I could be like my son who could never judge himself nor another. Wow. What a space I could live in my head, to just always be okay, to just be here and be me and be valuable. I think it's just beautiful what we can learn from people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love everything you just said.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm a crier, so don't mind me over
I
here.
love it. Honestly, I'm so happy. I'm like, oh, I feel that. Yes, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
The opposite of you being the quiet, I was the emotional drama queen, just late diagnosed. So now I can put a real understanding to my quote unquote drama, if you will. But I think it's important to let people know, like, the authenticity and the intent that comes from the value and the education and resources that we're trying to provide. And that comes with the connecting on a human level and really seeing the dignity and the humanity in the people we work with, in the families, in our own people that we have surrounded with us. So yeah, which brings you to me, of course.
Thank goodness. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's been everything you're talking about when I look at the body of work that I've created, this is the underlying theme. And I don't want it to look pretty and neat. I don't want it to be in a bow that's easily digestible. And I don't think we need that. I think we as a society need to be challenged on on being predisposed to judgment and to questioning what something is supposed to look like.
Yeah.
And I'm all about asking those questions out loud and challenging those ideas.
Moving the needle. That's the way we have to do it, isn't it?
Yeah. And, I'm going to just jump into something because you said something here. My dad recently passed, and
so sorry.
One of the things, thank you very much. I mean, it's, I think I'm bringing this out because it's a safe space to do it. And throughout his life, he had a very hard time. April is the month. It's Autism Awareness Month. It's also it's Autism Acceptance Month and Alcohol Awareness Month. I apologize for that. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because my dad had a life of real addiction and alcoholism, and it caused a lot of turmoil and torture in his life, and then also in the surrounding families and friends. But what is most important to me about something that's a very recent experience is that I went up to be with him the last segment of his life to help care for him. He was a very difficult human being. And it was through working on a film that we now have into the world. It's called Mandy's Voice. It's a short film. And I guess I'm telling things a little bit backwards, but it's really these years that I've been working on this film and having loving relationships with friends and with colleagues. And also I'm in a member of a number of organizations. I'm a mentor to a number of people. And I started realizing I have a lot of close loved ones in my life who are on the spectrum. And in me working with individuals and living life with them over several years and working through things, it opened my eyes in a way that I actually didn't realize until I went up and spent time with my father. And all of this is to say that I had an idea that he might be on the spectrum. And it's something that he's older, so he did have issues. He was diagnosed with something that he didn't agree with the diagnosis. And this is kind of a mystery in our world. 2 days before he passed, I went to the visiting nurse who had been with him for 6 years. And I thanked her because she's such an incredible human being. And also I understand how much he trusted her with his life, quite literally. And I needed to say, thank you for being here. And she turned to me and she said, Roxanna, I said, I know, thank you so much. I mean, I didn't say these exact words, but basically I said, thank you so much. I know he can be very difficult at times, and you mean the world to him. And I can't thank you enough for being a part of his life and our life. she turned to me, and she's a very tough, amazing woman. And she just said, look, Terry is who he is. He's an incredible human being. And, he's gone undiagnosed his whole life until 6 years ago. And my jaw didn't drop because of that, but because in my world, things came together, and things made, light came into being. And I recognize, like, what do I recognize? For me, what really, it was interesting because when I was assimilating that information and thinking about the film, and like the ego of a filmmaker, I want this to do really well, and I need this for my actors and et cetera, and the team. What I found myself saying is how amazing that this project somehow brought me closer into actually a prime relationship with my parent, and that I was in tuned enough to be able to ask the right questions in the right way, with the communication that particular individual really appreciated and needed. And for me, I said, that's it. Like, that was the gold. Mm-hmm. Everything else is icing on top of it.
Yeah, that is so true. Absolutely. For us, our son's diagnosis came really early at 16 months old. That was my first introduction to autism. My husband had a sister with Down syndrome, and so he was always very comfortable with special needs and how to care for her and how to be a good little brother. But he also was undiagnosed and unfortunately grew up in the criminal justice system, in detention, in foster homes, and as many go unnoticed and create a problem out of a person who's not being understood. And it all comes down to that piece of all behavior is communication. And so that's huge for, people to understand. Yeah. And it was when I, we'd been advocating for our son and putting all of these, therapies and things into place and practicing good, we had to teach ourselves as parents how to speak to this child who couldn't speak back to us and also would self-harm at the sound of the word no or anything happening. And so it was just like instant. We had to learn how to adjust to that. But it was when we were at my son's, he was 8 years old at the time, and we had him, not a re-diagnosis, but we went to have his IQ tested because he has a photographic memory and he's just a profoundly gifted soul. And so in that process is when I realized that my husband was on the spectrum, and I brought the information to him and I said, oh my gosh, babe, this makes so much sense. Like, he had dyslexia. He knew he had ADHD when he was growing up, but the missing piece was definitely being on the spectrum and, Asperger's, which is of course not what they say, but in our family, it just makes sense for us. And so for him, getting that information and really digesting it, and it was beautiful. It was so amazing. It brought us closer together. It created a perception for us to be able to give our son what he needed based on what my husband never got from what he needed. And they're quite different in challenge needs and such. And so with that, though, came the understanding for me that, oh my gosh, here's this man that I love and, make all of these accommodations for. No restaurants for 20 years I've stepped into because the man cannot sit with anyone eating. And I didn't know, that was fine for me. I just accommodated it. The sleeping schedule that was always just crazy that I accommodated with no question, no, anything. But here's this child that we're trying to control his sleeping patterns. We're trying to control what and when he's eating or how he's eating, and just societal, regulations of all of these things. And then I realized, no way, this is it. I'm done. Like, this child, I will watch him and he'll show me and tell me what he needs. He sleeps on what I prefer. I call the lunar sleeping cycle 2 months in the week, or 2 months of the week he sleeps in the day, and 2 weeks he sleeps in the night. And it's always the same pattern, ever changing. So I allow it to happen. Has education from home. He doesn't have out programs out of the house. So we can do it. We can accommodate for this right now. Yeah. And it was really hard though, at the beginning, when we had those ABA therapists and therapists at the home saying, he has to be awake for this session. He has to be, and I was just going, he can't, like, we've got to respect and give dignity to him as a human. And as an individual, these aren't the needs that he, needs. Like, he doesn't need to sit at this table and talk and answer what a dog says. Like, the child speaks 4 languages at the age of 6 and does algebra. Like, let's challenge him at the level he's at. And so it was a lot of like redefining what even the therapist knew about how to do what they did based on what my child was like, so fascinating.
And it's remarkable parenting too. It's really seeing where an individual is and meeting them there. And I mean, as a parent, it's just such a big job. It's such a big job. So
exactly,
to recognize that there's so many layers to it. And I mean, I don't know the specifics of your situation at all, but just to even hear what you just shared, I at least in this conversation right here, I just have to say congratulations for recognizing what you have and making the decisions that you have. And as a parent, I can say we all make changes,
yes,
we got to go with the flow, and things change over time. Yeah. So it will, and deal with each child exactly for who they are. I think we'd be a lot healthier as a world if we could do that a little bit more.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? And my daughter, 2 years younger than her brother, they're 13 and 11. She's a little bit, sounds more like you, in the sense that she is very quiet and she's the observer, and she really doesn't want to. I'm the one that's out in the world. Hey, hello, and so she just hides behind me when I do that stuff. But she has,
for now,
yeah, she has this inner strength and inner confidence that I never had, that I had to create for myself in my adulthood, that I had to pick up the pieces from broken childhood and pick up the little Sarah and put her back together, kind of a thing, but I see this resilience within her that we kind of made, not even a joke, but when she was real little, how parents they say, oh, grandma loves you the most, tell grandma you love her the most, whatever. I always told her, people say that to you, like, you love yourself. You are number one. You come first. It's always you. And I can tell you, it has made such a huge difference in how I view her as a person, how I see how she carries herself in the world. And yes, she may seem shy and quiet to strangers and to others who don't understand her. But for those of us who do, she is so brilliant. She's also on the spectrum, and she's, it's just this innate quality that now is all throughout what she does, this self-confidence. So yeah, brilliant. Okay, now let's get back to you. Okay. Just kidding.
I think that's the job, right? I mean, for me as a parent, my job is not to make a mini me. My job, in fact, I tell my kids all the time, I have the expectation you are the new and improved version. You are the upgraded version. You will surpass me. I will celebrate you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And the more parents that can step into that mindset, the better off we're going to be, because trying to recreate ourselves in our children creates havoc and trauma. Yep. And it's not necessary. Like, the more you step back and look at who you have in front of you and admire and, bring those strengths into the challenge or the weaker parts of their lives and build those with that,
Yeah. Yeah.
So absolutely. True. Mm-hmm.
It's a big job.
Isn't it though? And, I love how, to get back to that, I love how you were able to bring that into those final days with your dad.
Oh, thank
and
you.
to really have that compassion and empathy.
And
And
love. A
yes.
love that
Right?
surpasses conditions and
That.
time and space and expectations.
Yeah.
That's love, is to show up and to bypass the triggers that we used to live with.
Yes.
And to
Yeah.
really, I mean, I hear it, it's different context of what you're saying, but it's even, I heard, I mean, I related to it because I had to put it in my own little circle. It's like what you were saying about not eating in a restaurant. Okay, this is something I can accept. Like a lot of people can't.
Yeah.
Or to even, and I didn't mean to interrupt you with that because
Oh,
I agree with
great.
what you're saying. I also think it's like, I do want to say this because I hope that this makes a difference to at least one person. I mean, what I learned, one of the many, 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 everything has changed now. But one of the things that I really learned is like, love is not sweet. Love is not, um, tender. Love is not attraction. Love is not, conditional.
Mm.
It bypasses, it just zooms through all of that and then it's just there.
Encompassing. Yeah.
It is an all-encompassing presence and a willingness to just truly, like you said, just truly be present, not just to show up, but remain present. And that's that whole beyond time and space thing, I believe.
Yeah.
And for me personally, that's just very, very important. It's really important to
Yeah.
bring that to whatever I'm a part of. And I'm not I don't want to be a wooey wooey
Oh,
touchy. I am
I
a
was
little
going to say
bit.
thank you for the beautiful wisdom. I think it's amazing.
Oh, thank
Lots
you.
of value from that story, and understanding how when we stop kind of getting caught up in things that we can't control, and we step back and look at the things that we have, and we in gratitude, that's the best mindset to have. It's not possible all the time, but if it's a goal, then that's the best you can do, right? Is to have that. But let's talk about how kind of your idea of the film and where that was was born, or kind of how that came to be. And
Okay.
that's so exciting.
Thank you. So the film that is currently coming out into the world is called Mandy's Voice, and I am the director and producer of it, along with the producer Monique Madrid. My film partner is Josh Hansborough. He is. I want to come back and make sure I say this, that our screenplay writer is Sharon Y. Cobb. Our casting director is Ali Cloversettle. And we have an extraordinary team of consummate professionals and first timers behind the set, which
Love
is
that.
super cool.
Mhm.
To answer your question, Josh, my film partner, had done a couple of short documentaries on an incredible organization called Peace of Heart, which is a home where they people who are non-speaking, it's just a beautiful environment of community and faith and collectiveness where talents are explored and really honed, and the whole full person is seen.
Mhm.
And Josh thought, well, this is really interesting, and I've never seen a narrative on anything like this, so maybe we give it a go. And we fleshed out the script with Sharon, who just did a really just a tough job and a really stellar job. And I based the characters, the main character, Mandy, it morphed over time. I mean, that's the real answer. This film has morphed over time. And I think I'm going to give a little bit of education. Like, I thought this was going to be a 2 or 3 month project. It's over 3 years. It
Wow.
has taken us
Yeah.
a lot of time. COVID certainly was a huge part of that, but
Yeah.
we thought, oh, we're going to knock it out in a few months, no
Oops.
big deal. And what ended up happening was, so we went into production pre-COVID, and we cast amazing individuals. Well, we were doing a casting call in New York and Los Angeles and Atlanta, and had really incredible actors and actresses showing up of all different walks of life. And I mean, the truth is, I just really felt something was missing. I couldn't put the puzzle together, the pieces of the puzzle, and to be very transparent, there was no conversation about casting authentically. It really was not a conversation yet.
Yeah.
And I knew that this subject material is pretty giant, and we were trying to squish a lot of information into a little tiny, 10-15 minute piece, and how to give that justice was tough.
Yeah.
And so ultimately I said, I really think we need to cast authentically. And that, for me, in my larger body of work, has been the way. Now we have a title for it, but to me it was just like, we got to put the right person in, we got to put the right person in the right part. It's just that easy. And so it's not being blind to who one is casting, and it's not intentionally casting because you're supposed to. It's casting the individual who is truly the best vehicle to be that character.
Yeah.
And we worked through some different, I had some really kind of big ideas on how we were going to do this. And because I bet you in final assessment, the film, if we had dollar bills to pay for all of this, I would say we've created a $30,000-$40,000 film.
Wow.
But we've received over 75% of that, well, 80-90% of that has all been in-kind donation, has been volunteer, has been just a tremendous global community effort to bring this film out, to start conversations. And so I said, I really, can we give it a try? And the question was like, where are we going to find, in COVID, where are we going to find somebody who's on the spectrum, who acts,
Yes.
X, Y, and Z and W,
Yeah.
Y, Z, and I said, look, all we need is one. We don't need 1,000. We just need one. We need one person whose name is Mandy. And I remember sitting at my desk and just like going in a production meeting with the casting director and with the producer. I was like, just one. I'm just, universe, I'm calling out to you. Whoever you are out there, I hear you calling out to us. I'm asking you to find me because I am looking high and low for you. And so we did a casting call, everything from Facebook to professional casting call magazines and things, and online sources. And ultimately, there was somebody on crew, and his son is on the spectrum. And so I thought, well, why don't I just ask him if he knows anybody? Yeah. We had kind of been on hiatus. The film had been about 1.5 years before I became involved, sort of in development. And I said, well, why don't we just ask? And he said, why, yes, I do have a friend who might be interested. And my big question was, would this individual, my only non-negotiable was that it would be necessary for a person to be able to receive direction. And I'll tell you what, for the average actor, that can be a really big challenge.
Yeah.
So that's not pointing someone out. It's just going, I need someone who can receive direction, because if they can receive direction, I can work with them. They don't have to have a ton of experience, if any experience.
Yeah.
So I kind of nudged the team along, and they went, all right, Roxanna, if you're going to take it on, we're with you. And I went, we're going to do it. Let's go. And to our just incredible opportunity, wonderful Rachel Barcelona was friends with, was friends with Keaton, who's on crew with us. And I love her. We got together. I got together, I think, with her, and it might have been her dad at first. And I told her about the project, and she said to me after a nice long interview, she said, all right, well, Roxanna, you sound like you're saying all the right things, but are you really going to do it? Are you really going to stick to it? And I threw my hands in the air and I went, I love you. Yes. I give you my word. And if I don't, you're the first one to call me out. And whatever that is, I'm going to clean it up. You call me out anytime you need to. And so we worked online because it was COVID, the thick of the shutdown. And anyway, well, I had a weird experience 5 years ago. I had a near-death experience and came back. So I have to be very careful about my lungs. And I wasn't taking chances like some other people might have been able to. And so I cast Rachel Barcelona as the lead of Mandy, and then we have the indelible Karen Silas, who had her own television show, who's done a ton of off-Broadway and a huge number of independent films, just an extraordinarily solid, amazing actress, plays her mom. We ended up casting Crystal Thompson, that in real life, she is a therapist, and yeah, she loves salsa. Was sort of like she's a competitive dancer, and that was kind of the furthest we've ever gone. But I was like, look, I'm a choreographer. We can work with that. Going back to that choreography thing, And then wonderful Amy Nielsen, as you know, in her life, she is an advocate, she is an author, she is the mother of a child on the spectrum, and she was just extraordinary. And then her little guy played the young friend. And the truth is, it was interesting to make these adjustments with the script and to make the adjustments with the characters. And it was a huge experiment, because everybody came from a different place in their orientation with their experience with autism, and maybe even how they feel about it and their opinions. But the most gorgeous thing was that in this film, everyone came together for the same purpose, generously, lovingly, gently, and really, really committed. And one of the biggest things I'm excited to talk about when this film goes out into the world is, what is autism supposed to look like? What are the expectations for me as a director and a writer and a filmmaker? One of the biggest challenges I had was, so I know what this was on set. I understand what we needed to do on set, and there were some medical emergencies that occurred. And not that it doesn't happen on all sets. That's why we have insurance. That's why we have medical personnel who are supposed to be on set. Period. But what it really brought to me was a larger, every time we'd check a box and go, okay, we got through that hurdle and this hurdle, which is just the nature of filmmaking or television, period. I thought, can neurotypical people receive this? What are their expectations? Because actors are supposed to look like their feelings, right? That's something that actors, as an actor, I can raise my hand and say, I was definitely trained to look like I'm sad if I feel sad, look like I'm happy when I'm happy. And my job as an actor is to express that. So what does that look like for individuals who express those same feelings and sentiments differently?
Yeah.
And so that is something I'm very excited to talk about with audiences and challenge audiences with. And I'm excited to go back, because our main character uses typing, uses words to really express herself. And, I'm kind of excited about that, because I'm hoping in some way it just brings attention to the value of writing, the value of reading, the value of being read to.
Yeah.
And it was also an interesting thing in the time of this film, because so it's about a young teen on the spectrum who struggles to communicate, and her mother's, for lack of a better word, desperate to find the tools to help her survive in a world where she's really overlooked. And then a therapy is introduced, and they go on a journey together, and their relationship is shifted forever, probably. And it's a big concept. We're just kind of throwing it out there for conversations of all kinds to talk about it. And if it's okay, I want to share this little thing with you. Please. That this is, if you can see this, I hope, this is a book called Hostage to Silence by Brady Wright. And this is by one of the young men who live at Peace of Heart. And this is similar to the subject matter that we are tending to in the film. So Gentry Grichelle did all of the artwork in the book, and this is all of Brady's writings and poetry, and they're just stunningly moving and beautiful and important and coherent, and sometimes messy, and I love that. And he divided it into and he divided his book. They divided the book into sections of different conflict, family and friends, optimism. So it's really about insights.
Yeah.
And our film, I hope, supports this kind of work and also initiates conversations between everyone.
Mm.
How do they feel seen and recognized? What is it that they want to be heard saying, and why? And how do you want the people around you to react and then interact? And I think it's a big question for the entertainment industry, because I think we're making some changes in how stories are told and what stories are told. And I think that just needs to keep going. That in the
Absolutely.
macro, this film is a visual love letter between a mother and a daughter. And I think every parent can relate to that. And then in the macro, it's also a larger societal predisposition to prejudice and to judging them over there. They are different from me. And we're zooming that way into one story about one fictional character, teen girl, and her mom. And I hope that eventually that goes out to the macro. And
Yeah.
so that's a lot. That's that's where we are with Mandy's voice. Yeah.
Wow. And I'm so excited. I, number one, have grown to just love both Rachel and Amy and have wonderful, relationships with them. And not only that, but have been able to just watch how much they're growing and how much, Rachel just blows your mind every time you turn around, right? It's incredible. And like you said, kind of finding this space to celebrate. Last year, I'll tell you about it a little bit later, more details, but last year I had a virtual online autism summit. I invited, it was called the 1 in 44 tour. And I invited 34 advocates, from Rachel to Danny Bowman, who was on Love on the Spectrum. Just so many, so many. I won't name them all. Bless their hearts. They know who they are. But it was one of the most incredible 2-day experiences. I found artists and rappers and singers and just incredible performances, and just created a space for them to come and strut their stuff and share what they wanted and tell their stories or share their skill. And it was so incredible to not only make the connections with them all, but to have them all in this online space. Unfortunately, it's not in person, but and so this year we're having to change it a little because our numbers have changed in the world. And so this year we are doing the 1 in 36 mix.
Wow.
And it will be just the same. We're going to have live podcasts and all of the great performances, new icons, giving a voice and a face and a name to all of the advocates who want to make a difference. And that's where we can learn the most, is from them.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's so much fun. It's like, I just was like buzzing for days and days and days, before, after, during, it's amazing to have all of that energy. So,
I bet.
Just as you can understand with yours.
Oh yeah.
And when is the film due to be? Is it in independent films now?
So we just launched it out into submission world, and now we're like at the mercy of of those who want to program it. And if there's if it's okay to give this plug,
please.
The website for the film is www.mandys MANDYS voice VOICE film FILM. So Mandy's Voice Film is all one word.com. And please reach out to us, because ultimately check it out. And ultimately, if somebody wants it in their area and you reach out to me and say, hey, Roxanna, when are you coming to Toledo? When are you coming to Greece or wherever, then I can say, where are you? find festivals that are in that region. And the more the festival knows that there's an audience, the more likely they are to program it. And I am really working to get it virtual. So for folks who cannot travel, then they can have access to it through virtual a component for the festival. So we literally just like launched it into the world last week. So we've got a little bit wait time to see how it goes.
I'm in Salt Lake City and I'd like to go to Sundance.
Oh,
so
yes.
Come on out.
Yes, thank you.
That's the best place, right? That's exciting. It's been so amazing to get to know you. And I think we'll probably have to have you back on for another invigorating hour of.
Oh, thank you. I'd love to come back.
Yes. It was so wonderful to talk with. And once again, mandysvoicefilm.com.
Yeah.
And is there anywhere else that they can go to reach you? You have your own website or anything?
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. Please come visit me. You can definitely connect with me via my website, and that is www.roxanna, ROXANNA, Lewis, LEWIS.com, roxannalewis.com. And I'd love to say hello. I will answer any messages. I'm very, gosh, I'm so touched. I have had people reach out to me from all around the world, and many of those have become relationships, and sometimes it's just a really wonderful thing to connect and talk about things and ask a question. So I'd love to connect with anybody who's interested.
Oh, wonderful. Such a pleasure to have you on the show today to get to know you more. And I love that we made this connection, and I look forward to staying friends for as long as we can now.
Me too. Sarah, me too, by all means.
So much. We'll be in touch.
Sounds great.